Parashat Rabbi. We're getting through Moshe's speech, his farewell speech to the nation. It's incredible. His recap Jewish history, their experiences after leaving Egypt, introduced new mitzvot, and he's reminding the Jewish people, listen, we are a monotheistic culture. We don't worship idols. And Hashem finds all this an utter abomination. This is a misguided way of life. And Hashem's going to get rid of all these idol-worshipping cults for you, and you're going to replace them, and you are going to live in the promised land. But you might still be tempted. Well, let's answer the question. Are we tempted? Does it tempt anybody to sacrifice to strange gods or to sacrifice our children? It would seem, well, obviously 21st century Jews, absolutely not. But Hashem tells us, and we're going to read it in this week's parasha. Don't copy what the non-Jewish world did in the past. All that which is an abomination to Hashem, they did. These other nations served. This is how they serve their gods. But they burn their children in fire to their gods. Now we look at that and we think, well, we've come so far from that world, we're not doing that anymore. Tick, we must be perfect Jews. But I ask the question this week, really? Do we not sacrifice our children? Okay, we don't physically take the child and burn them in fire. That was done in the primitive world. But surely we put certain things as priorities in our world, and we do sacrifice our children. Do we create orphans out of our children in our own lifetimes? Do we ignore them? Do we prioritize other things over and above the needs of our nearest and dearest, our loved ones, our children who need us so desperately? Is it really the case that we don't no longer sacrifice our children? Do we sacrifice our children for our social status? Do we sacrifice lots of things? Not like they did back in the day, but I think these psukim are very, very instructive. Of course, we know Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We know that's the line. We know that Jews believe in one God. And that was the same thing here. The Torah is not telling us here that they were going to worship their gods. They knew that those were false. They recognized that. But the methods by which they worship their gods were still exciting, were still tempting to our ancestors. And Hashem says, don't even go there. Don't do that. Eventually we are told, Banim atem Hashem Elokeichem, we are Hashem's children, and therefore we have to act differently. And I do wonder, 21st century, to what extent we have managed to eradicate from our midst idol worship. Idol worship wasn't like we learned when we were children. We were told to draw a picture of a tree or a stone, and some goofy character was told to worship. Idol worship really meant deifying, justifying every urge that we have. That's a natural human urge, and saying it's okay to be like that. The Torah says, no, it's not okay to be like that. There are ways to behave, and there are ways not to behave. And we read in the Psukim about sacrificing our children. I still shudder and I wonder to what extent we've managed to eradicate such a drive amongst us. Thus, as we read these Psukim this Shabbat, let's think about how we treat our children, the relationship we have with our children. Do our children recognize that they are our number one priority, or are they just a burden or an accessory that we have chosen to acquire for ourselves, for our social status, or for any other imaginary need that we do or we do not have? We're not allowed to sacrifice our children under any circumstances. Let's make sure our kids know how precious they are. If we are Banim Atem Hashem Elokeichem, if we are Hashem's children, then let our children know how special they are too. Not just as Hashem's children, but as our children. Teach them the beauty of who they are and their place in the world. Shabbat Shalom.